Let me just make sure that there is no echoing. Let me just make sure. Okay. All right. I think we got it now. Okay, good. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to Wake the Nation. And tonight's topic is systemic sex trafficking. Systemic sex trafficking we're talking about tonight. So you could describe it as when the systems that were set up to enhance the lives of children, right? Instead, they're utilized to bring damage, to do damage, to put an end to the productive growth of a child. So systems like the schools are meant to educate the children. We have healthcare that's meant to take care of, keep a child healthy. Should there be a problem, then there are medicines or procedures to help keep them in good health. The justice system is there to keep a child safe from abuse, and counselors are created to listen to children and to advise them, right? And daycares. We have daycares that are there to provide a safe space for children when their parents are at work. And so we have a number of people that in 2021, there was a large sex trafficking group that was broken up. People were arrested, and they had, folks that you would think that would be the ones to provide a safe haven for the children. So there were some nurses, a doctor, pastors, law enforcement, and the list went on. And it was a large one. And so I have here with me tonight my co-host, Mrs. Thais Love, who wears many hats, and she will let you know when she's speaking who she'll remind you. And I have Reverend Lee, as a guest. And we also have tonight Wilhelmina Sparrow, who is the CEO, CFO, and she is the founder of Sparrow International. So I'll have my co-host say a few words, and then we'll have Mrs. Sparrow take the stage. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and feel free to ask questions, put it in the chat, respond, put it in the chat, because tonight's topic is a very emotional topic. And unfortunately, not enough people are aware of it, and it's going on right in front of our noses. We're talking about systemic sex trafficking. Sex trafficking has been going on for quite a long time now, but there are more efforts being made to bring awareness to this worldwide issue. It's not just happening way over there in a maybe third world country. It is happening right in your backyard, right in your front yard. And so we're here tonight with our special guest, and we're going to just bring awareness and talk about some things that we can do to better protect our children, and as well as ourselves, from these happenings that are going on. One of the things is I would like for when our guest from the founder of Sparrow International, when she speaks, she's going to shed a whole lot of light on what we're talking about. But I just wanted to just introduce and introduce the topic and just kind of mention it so that she can go in and further explain and expound upon it. But the sex trafficking is a billion-dollar industry. I said billion with a B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Multi-billion.
Yes,
There is such a,
multi-billion.
it
Yes.
really is in the high.
And sex trafficking of children is very profitable, so profitable that there are people who are aggressively snatching children, literally, because when you sex traffic a child and you get a child to become a sex slave, you make money off of that child for years and years and years and years, all the way into adulthood. So
until they no longer need them.
right, or until they are totally incapacitated where they can't do it any longer. And so there's a huge demand for it, unfortunately, on the Black market and different places. And so we are here tonight to bring awareness, serve notice. Parents, you need to really, really be mindful of your children. Parents, they're so busy, they're working hard, working extra hours, they're tired, they're not getting enough sleep, and they're doing a lot of things just by routine and rote, and things are happening to our children right under our noses. And because we're so busy, we don't even notice. We don't notice any signs. We don't notice. Many times I see it often. Parents are walking out in the street with small children. They're going across the street with the children. They're not holding the child's hand as they cross the street. The child could just simply dart out into the middle of the street and get, hit by a car. But, the parents are like, we're just going to get across the street. Come on, let's go, and they don't, grab the child's hand. Many parents are distracted these days. They got their headphones in, they're on their cell phone, they're multitasking even while they're caring for their children. And, you turn your eye away from your child for a split second and your child could be gone that fast.
Yeah.
And so,
As a matter of, can I just say,
sure.
as a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, a little girl in Maryland, she went to the park with her friend and her mom, and the friend said she wanted to go around one more time on the bike, right? The mom is sitting there watching them, and the little girl, no, her friend left. Her friend mother came and picked her up. So she said to her mom, can I just go around one more time? So her mom is sitting on the bench watching, and just in the split, there was like a couple of trees just blocking just in that instant. And so she never saw her child, after the tree just come in. And she's like, what's happening? And her child was abducted, but thank God she was found, and she was returned. Thank God. And but this recently happened, and then a friend of ours just told us that her grand niece in Manhattan just missed being kidnapped. So yeah, it's real. It's real. It's happening. So we just want to she's an Wilhelmina Sparrow, Mrs. Sparrow, she's an advocate for this. And so she does it in a unique way. So I would like you to unmute yourself and just jump in. And then Reverend Love will ask some questions, and so will I.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, so
Welcome.
yeah, and I love this Wake the Nation. Yes, people, we gotta wake up. We gotta come and wake up because we gotta see what's happening out there. And it's not just sex work that we're fighting against with our children. There's also body parts, organ trafficking, and even illegal scientific experiments. There's a lot. This is a very deep rooted issue in so many ways because it's a free labor force. And what they use these children for and these men and women for is just basically to extort and exploit them in any way they can, any way they can access their resources. The goal is to maintain control and access the resources. And then what happened is traffickers, we call it systemic trafficking because the traffickers had infiltrated these areas like social work services, our teachers, like mentioned before, and including and also our guidance counselors, our what is it called? Psychiatrists,
Yes.
our and their goal is to access these individuals, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, whether it's a woman, man, and everyone else as well. This is also LGBTQ included too, because what happens in the underground market, there's a fetish for everything too when the sex industry. So wherever there's a fetish, there's a need for that fetish to be filled. Someone's targeted for human trafficking. So it's not even just a racial thing, but they do use racism as a tool to create divide because if we're fighting each other and fighting different communities, well, they can use that divide to split the communities and then exploit the different communities how they choose to see fit. And this goes all the way up to our politicians who are also being held by gunpoint by these people. They too are being extorted, their children being threatened or their careers being threatened, even creating evidence against people just so that they could discredit them and discredit their names and discredit their careers. A lot of times what we're seeing is people that might know something and they want to get rid of them, and we're seeing corruption being exposed. So it's our judgment and it's us attacking each other that's feeding this beast, and they're weaponizing the systemic tools to do so. And how they're doing that is, for example, out here in Staten Island is very big out here. Child Protective Services is a tool that they've mastered to exploit the children out here for child trafficking. And the foster homes are actually set up to be grooming centers for these kids where they'll experience rape and other types of traumas and abuse. Because what people don't understand is, I liked how you mentioned earlier, Reverend Love, that you see people being used to the point that they're so broken down and they're no longer able to be used. And I believe you said that also, Florencia, as well. And and that's true. When we see those people that are like strung out on the streets and they're willing to sell themselves for their drugs, those are the ones that have been so used up that they're no longer of use, and pretty much the best they can do is be a scout, and they'll plant them in areas to scout children and women and identify those that are vulnerable, and then we're just going past them, like going about our business, and they're just watching us going back and forth, who's coming in, who's going out, what time you go, what time you leave. And then the traffickers, who are disguised as cops, disguised as social workers, come and they feed their drug addiction, and then and for that addiction, they'll exchange the information on who to target. And then systemically, what they'll do is, now they'll have their guys go and literally hunt these people. And then you're thinking you're dealing with corrupt cops who just want to abuse their badge. And it's more than that. It's deeper than that. These are individuals who went in with the intent to hide under the badge, to abuse the authority so that they can traffic our children and our men, and then even organ trafficking, especially organ trafficking. We don't even realize how many times when we see a young Black man being killed by a cop is most likely being killed for organ trafficking. Or you know, someone like that can be a perfect example. Mr. Floyd would be a perfect example. They choked him out. They made sure none of his organs, they didn't beat him up. They didn't damage his body at all. And they did it boldly in front of everybody with no care. And the money that probably went into harvesting his organs, if that was what his targeted intent was, would be tremendous. And then they have the nerve. I was telling them earlier, like, we are worth, in child trafficking alone for a brown-skinned child is $21 million. And then they have the audacity to call us low income.
But you know, you say that, and I don't know how many of us heard it in the news. There was a mother who was fighting. I can't remember the name of the school or even the names that were involved, because so many things were going on. Because that was a time when there were a lot of protests. It was during Black Lives Matter. And, you know, it was one person after another. And there were some names, we know of Philando Castile, George Floyd, Sandra Bland, and so many others. There were so many. And we never got over, like, just calling these names when there were still yet others. Well, in the midst of that, there was a mom who her son was killed, and he was wrapped. I don't know if any of you heard of this. He was wrapped. She
Yes.
found him in a what was it that he was
A
wrapped in?
carpet. He
In
was
a
wrapped in the
carpet.
carpet. Yes.
In a
And in the
carpet.
school.
And
This happened in the
a
school.
school. And
Mhm.
when she got his body, it was devoid of the organs.
Yes.
Plain. Yes.
Wow.
So all that was happening. And it, so much noise was going on that never came to the forefront, because that was a big issue.
Yes.
And not a lot of, but you know what
That
I
this young man was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was saying this, no one even questioned that this young man was killed inside his school, where he's supposed to be the safest place, second from home. And then his organs were missing, like wrapped in the carpet. This is a systemic thing, because this had to be a system of people to be able to pull such a stunt like that, kill him, go unnoticed, harvest his organs, hide his body, and then go about the business, and then go about their business. So, and then that means they had to also exit the organs out of the facility, out of the building.
Yeah.
So this is all happening right under our nose, like you said, and we was busy fighting Black Lives Matter, and not saying that should have never been an issue.
No, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been. I'm just saying we were distracted in a way, because that needed to be covered up, so other people were killed in the meantime.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Distractions happen. It's what happens. So
and Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is one of the reasons why God tells us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, not meaning that we shouldn't be stupid, right? It's not that we're going about to seek troubles, right? Or to be divisive. However, to be aware, to be alert, and to be assertive. Yeah. So, question. So how can one recognize, I don't know if you want to, want to go into, how can one recognize if they're being targeted or if someone they know is being targeted? Like, because something that I learned years ago, I did the Citizens for Police Academy and I learned Homeland Security. Said the head, he said this, it's real. I mean, everybody I think knows this, is we're creatures of habits. And as Christians also, we learn this, right? The enemy of our souls watches us, right? and monitors our moves. And so it happens in the world as well. So he said that we're all creatures of habit. Most people travel the same route every single day. They go this route, they stop in this Starbucks. We do things almost systematically or by rote. We do, right? And he says, we're watched. Those who need to take a person down watches, follows from the distance, but they're there. So are we ever alert and aware? And the Bible tells us that the enemy of our soul is like a roaring lion seeking who to devour. Like it's we have the guidelines, and it happens in the real life. We tend to think that we've been put on notice. So what have you found in your studies and in the work you do? How can a parent, an aunt, or anyone recognize if something's being wrong? And who are some of these children or youth or young people? I know you said it, but if you can get a little bit more in detail, that are being targeted, like, are these children from homes that are, have problems, that kind of a thing?
So the most vulnerable and susceptible are kids that come from homes where there is trouble. But what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of times these environments, these homes are created to the system. To answer your question, the system of how they have it is inciting and weaponizing trauma. So the first thing they would do is try to incite your mental health if you are susceptible to mental health. Now, if you aren't and you do come from a good background, and let's say you aren't, you're trauma free, well, then that's when they'll weaponize rape and other things to traumatize the victims, the targeted victims. So now how you're being targeted, like you said, being aware of your surroundings, knowing who's following you in those routines and stuff like that. For example, over here in Staten Island Ferry, they will employ the addicts over there to follow you using the public transportation laws, because this is a public route, this is a public transportation. Anyone, even if I have an order of protection against somebody, and that person rides that bus, or rides the train or rides the ferry, anything that's considered public Department of Transportation, that's pretty much a neutral ground because of that right for using that public transportation. Yep. So now what they'll do is that they'll ride these buses to see what stop you get off, to see where, and they'll even sometimes get off with you and follow you all the way home. And then you'll think, are they following me? And then they'll walk right past your house because they're information gathering, they're scouting. So we got to first know how to identify the scouts. I think.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Let us know.
And so now let's say you're in a school and let's say the teachers have infiltrated that this teacher's a trafficker. Well, then most likely you're dealing with the teacher messing with the child's grades, alienating the child, allowing bullying to happen to the child, even sexual harassment to happen to the child from other children. So that's what happens in an environment where your child or you are supposed to be
Please
protected.
mute yourselves. Sorry if you're
No,
not.
it's okay.
Thank you. Please mute yourself.
But yeah, so like in an environment that your child or you are supposed to be safe, if you're being targeted by the very people that are supposed to be protecting you by through alienation, bullying, allowing bullying, basically they lift their protection off from you. That's one way to know that you're being targeted for that, because they're letting the people surrounding you know that you do not have protection. The cops will even do this. Like, let's say you call the cops and then you have evidence of a crime that was committed against you, but they still refuse to make the arrest. Though that's an example of letting the community, surrounding community know that you don't have their protection. So
Mm.
so these are different areas you can identify systemically how you're being targeted, even in your mental health. If you find that you're feeling worse after going to your therapist, report that. You should question that. Why is my therapist making me feel worse? Why is my therapist encouraging me to be alienated from someone who would actually help me? These things will help you understand if alienation's number one key to targeting you, because they need to lift the protection surrounding you, whether they alienate you through your own actions by inciting you to look emotional, erratic, and even volatile and confrontational, because all those things is, ladies and gentlemen, it's your judgment, it's your ostracism that makes this very much possible, because without that they can't grab a bird from their flock once the bird is separated from their flock. So I think as a whole we need to also address that within ourselves as a community, on how to address those who are different, how to address those who do come across violent, volatile, and etc., so that this way we don't further alienate them and drive them further deep into being trafficked, or if they're being groomed and targeted for traffic, now they're successfully being picked up and trafficked because their protection from the community has been lifted. So these are different ways. Another area is we have to have empathy as the industry, and that's where I come in with my way and style of identifying human trafficking, because a lot of women and young men who are pursuing singing and artistic and music careers, dancing careers, are targeted for trafficking, and many artists are exploited here in New York City for free labor. And it goes under the guise as promotional work. So there's so many different areas that we are targeted, and that's the scary part of realizing how well infiltrated they have it been. But one of the solutions that we're working on is a lie detector test to vet these individuals. Like, for example, if a person's a social work service and their job is to identify a person's vulnerability so that they can help them, then they should go under a lie detector test to ask every 6 months as a screening, have you ever exploited someone in your position? Have you ever abused your mandating reporting authority, and etc.? We even have pastors and ministers disguised as they're traffickers disguised as pastors and ministers. So, this is also spoken biblically, beware of wolves who come in sheep's clothing. So these individuals did just that. And they're even I feel it's a much more targeted for child trafficking, because you got a lot of pedos who are fighting to actually have their pedophilia recognized as a sexual orientation. So, and then what happens is it's just very simple tactic. All you have to do is just hide who you are and then get into a position of power and change the legislation, a simple swoop of the pen. So we don't even have to be fighting each other the way we think we have to fight each other. All we have to do is just put the right people in to write the proper legislations that will help protect us, and also untie our police officers' hands, the good ones that are held hostage, because we got to recognize if these cops are willing to, these traffickers who are under the guise of cops are willing to shoot and kill our community for the sake of money, they're also willing to shoot and kill their partners if they don't go with the program. So we have to free. We're all held hostage by these domestic terrorists, and we're all sitting here feeling the pressure. Spiritually, we feel it, and that, you know, increase of depression as a woman, as mothers, and as nurturers. We're very empathetically connected to this world and to what's happening to our children, and we feel that. So we have to address it from, you know, both spiritually, you know, healing from that standpoint, as well as medically addressing the mental health and the damages that this creates. Have our psychiatric care recognize some form of diagnosis where the oppressed becomes the oppressor, so that this way we experience that a lot, especially amongst our men who have felt very emasculated by oppression and racism. So we're seeing them trying to maintain control of their manhood, and by doing so is to control us, the women. So these are there's so many different ways we have to address this, but a starting point, I think, is just some small legislation changes that will help at least weed out these individuals, because they have infiltrated us systemically, and that's why we labeled it systemic trafficking.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask that, but you already answered that, because I was going to say, well, who do we turn to for help and how do we get help? But you know what you said, and it's hurting people, hurt others. And so at times we find that victims either become, continue to be victimized, or they turn the other way and become still a part of the cycle. So it's like a cyclical thing on so many different levels. It's like, I was going to say, where do we start? But you did tell us where to start. You know, it's this is so much. It's so much. You know, I remember this little boy. He was in school. They wanted to there were some teachers who recommended that he be given, is it Ritalin, right? That's that drug and that kid would go to school drugged, come, sleep, wake up, go to lunch, then go to the nurse's office, get another dose, sleep, wake up when school is over, and go home. Now, how functional is that? I don't even know where that kid is today. Seriously. Well, you know, I had left, but that was one of the things that I saw that happen. And you know, the reason why he was the way he was, he said he didn't know how to read. Why not teach him to read? I remember once I was asked to cover a teacher's class, and when I did, she left for them to be tested. And so I said, well, let's do this, but we're going to do it a different way. And so they had spelling. Now, granted, this was third grade. Now hear me, and hear me well. This was third grade. The words were simple, but I simply took them out of order when I gave the kids the words. Now, I can't begin to tell you that more than half the class failed. Some wrote back the words that they had copied, just wrote back in the same order, even though I gave them in a different order. And so when I reported it to the principal, that teacher never spoke to me again, because how dare I do something like that? I messed with the plan, but you're messing with children's lives. because you weren't teaching them. So I sat and decided that here's what I was going to do. Start by teaching the sounds of the letters and the vowels. And by the time she came back, when I tell you there were changes in the class, there were changes. But did she appreciate it? No. So at that time, though, I wasn't aware that this might be tying into something bigger than, you know what I mean? But now I am quite aware of all that it entails. And as you said, you know, when uh, counselors, right? Guidance counselors are there to be guidance counsel, to guide the students. But can I tell you, I remember going to the guidance counselor and giving the guidance counselor information for the kids. And when there were some children there, and they were like, really? We never knew this. And so, you know, I had to speak to the principal once again. What are they doing? And this is why, as parents, and we're here trying to alert you to what's happening, and that you need to pay keen attention. As Reverend Love said, I've been, how many times I'm not driving, I see little kids behind their parents. Why is no child should ever be in back of you? No child should ever be towards, you know, you have to be that buffer between them and the road. And if they're in front, they should never be that far that you can't reach to grab them. Because when they take off, that's it, right? You know, it's just sad to see everything that is happening, and to know, you know, I don't think we're helpless. And I'm glad that there are people like Mrs. Sparrow who have stepped up to the plate to say, hey, this is a problem. I'm aware of it, and I'm doing something. I will fight no matter what, because, and to know that sometimes you'll feel alone, but you're never alone. You're never alone. There are others. And it's just for us to come together, to unite, to say, hey, let us all do this together to help each other. Because united, we're stronger. And when we work together, it's for humanity. It shouldn't be races against race, or those of different economic status or educational background fighting against each other. No, it's one race, the human race, and we need to help each other. So with that being said, I'm going to ask Reverend Love if you have any questions or for her, and then afterwards we'll ask that others unmute, unless Mrs. Sparrow, if you have anything else to add. Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, me. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I have a question. I, being a therapist myself, I just find it really upsetting to find out that there are people in the industry that are, you know, contributing to and participating in this systemic sex trafficking. Like, what do you do if you are, well, I have my own private practice, but if you work for an agency and you suspect or you see a coworker engaging in stuff like this, like what do you do? Do you tell your boss? But you might lose your job, or you know, you don't know who else is involved. So like, what do you do if you see something like that, or suspect sex trafficking, or at least the alienation and isolation of vulnerable peoples?
Report. Um, I think it's important to understand who to report to. Like you said, it- well, the Inspector General's office has, you got your state attorney general office, and then you also got the Inspector General's office that heads over in DC as well. So I always recommend reporting it to the Inspector General and your state attorney general's office. They have a different division of those areas, like such as for social work services. They also have a division for to address therapists and even NGOs, non-for-profits, and businesses for exploiting. And then also very importantly is you got the FBI, and you also have Department of Homeland Security. I personally like to go, I'm a woman who likes to go straight up to the top. And I'll go straight to Department of Homeland Security, right over Big Daddy. And then report, because what happens is you have federal law where if you get federal, and this falls under federal jurisdiction, human trafficking falls under federal jurisdiction, as so does, and especially child trafficking. If there's a minor involved, you do not need to get a permission to report that. And a lot of people think that mandated reporting only is limited to reporting against the parent. No, mandating reporting is for you to report when a child is in danger, period. And which or even an individual, if you're a therapist and you're talking to you have a client who's expressing these things, and you are starting to identify these areas where, wow, there's possible exploitation here, you can report it to the federal, to the FBI and also Department of Homeland Security. You do have that power and that authority. And then so I think that's that's a good question. I hope I answered it.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. And that's very empowering. Because, after hearing all of this, and, I like Reverend Chang-Ageda stated earlier, we know someone whose niece was there was an attempt abduction, on her way to school in the morning. And so it's like, you almost feel helpless, like, oh my gosh, what can we do? So yes, you did answer my question, and you've given me, a place to start. And so another question, I have a lot of questions, but another question, I'd just like you to expound a little bit more, like the signs of you working with someone that may be involved or in trying to isolate you or alienate you. One of the things you said was like, it should be questioned if you're going to a therapist and you feel worse going to the therapist than you did before you went. That is a red flag. Are there any other signs that you should look out for? You also said like the teacher is allowing bullying and even sexual harassment and abuse happening in the classroom. That's another red sign. So are there any others?
I think the biggest signs is usually emotional trauma. And when people are being groomed, they are being confused and gaslighted. So what's very important, if you are experiencing things yourself is if you're constantly left in a state of confusion, if people are making you question your reality, and the things that you're seeing, there's a saying, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. And that's very important to apply to understanding human trafficking and how you're being targeted, because that's exactly what happens. They're gonna there's usually over embellished promises of work, over embellished promises of fame, over embellished promises of allowing certain freedoms with your sexuality, especially with young girls and young boys, at these times when they're exploring their sexuality. Traffickers will use that opportunity to groom a child into being more sexualized. So, is your child being favored by a teacher a little more so than all the other students? Because a lot of times we want that favorship as parents, because that's our instincts to, oh, they'll protect them, or they could be grooming them. And so it's behavior is really a big indicator. If you see a child who's, or even a young lady or a young man, just always angry, always volatile, always fighting, well, that's because they're at home. They have to fight. They have to fight to survive. So it puts when an individual is placed in a state of survival, well, you'll see that they'll act like that. They'll act like people who need to survive, or they're fighting everybody around them, or they don't trust easily, and they're very quiet or mousy, and nobody, they just, for them, blending in is very important, because standing out is a danger. It depends on, the circumstances. So yes, it is that will require, we're working on workshops to come to different areas to sit down and discuss that, because that is definitely a demographically targeted question. Like, depending on your demographics is how you're targeted for the grooming process. So, religion plays a part of it. We're seeing that with Palestine and Israel right now. It looks like freedom fighters, but it's actually individuals who want them to fight amongst each other over the land so they could extort their children and the women. So these are things like, it depends on where you're at, and it depends on who you are, and everything. Your age, plays a part, because we think elderly individuals are not targeted, but they are. Especially through the guardianship program. So there's a lot of that's happening, and sometimes, and another ugly truth is, it can be your own family members. If you are not growing with the people around you, and you're always building to be torn down, to have to rebuild again, you have people around you that are extorting you and exploiting you. So that, but identifying who, that can be the difficult part, but that's where we're here. That's where we're here to reach out. If anyone needs, help with that, we're definitely here to help with that.
I also would think that people, immigrants, coming into this country, trying to get citizenship, and all of that, I would also think that they would be a vulnerable target as well. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, definitely. And actually, MS-13 is big on this area of trafficking. MS-13 is big on border trafficking. They're the ones who are the ones that you hire to get the job done when no one else can. And but what it is these gangs are united in that effort to traffic these immigrants. And then when we're seeing individuals, those individuals that are protesting to shut down these shelters on them, what happens is traffickers will come and pick them up. These gangs will come and pick them up, because now you shut down their only means to get on their feet too. So and then they, as the fact that they're not citizens and they're not documented properly and everything else allows them to get lost deeper into child trafficking. And one of the in human trafficking. And one of the biggest things that came out recently in Texas was one of the facilities had came out with they realized that they were giving the children to individuals that weren't the sponsors, who weren't actually the family members that they were claiming to be. And they realized they trafficked thousands of children in a month due to this, because what they do is, on one end, due to the inflation issue, they're hiring like younger people who need to make money for college, make money for things, but these people aren't parents. They're not mature enough mentally or emotionally to watch over children, and then to understand warning signs in children too. There was an issue of the fact that they were just dropping them off at these sponsors, even though the kids were crying, saying that they didn't know this person and they don't remember them, and they didn't do a proper vetting. And these were the immigrant children, and a lot of these were the migrant children that were coming through across the border. They were also experiencing extreme circumstances where they were being raped and killed, and siblings watching their siblings being raped and killed while they were being trafficked over the border. So it's and by opening the border, and then us talking about closing the border, they made it like sound so racist. But the truth is, it's not closing the border to stop immigration. It's about closing the border to prevent trafficking and allow immigration to come through in a way where we could vet individuals and even save lives. So by opening the border, we're understaffed in the Department of Homeland Security's area of border control. There's not enough people to handle what's coming through. And then you can't vet everyone properly, and it's easy for people to get lost that way too. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, yeah. And just to piggyback on what you said, is that there was a gentleman who worked for them that actually spoke about how much he was paid, and how he would take these children to homes of wealthy people. They would be jetted to these people, and so the money is what's really talking, and that were even people here in New York City, and and recently the FBI was exposed. They were caught trafficking, members of the FBI, not the entire. There were a couple of FBI agents that were caught trafficking children. The thing is, I was these immigrants, these migrant children who are here, that are running for cover, seeking a place of refuge, are being so they're taken disadvantage of. Recently, we had a meeting. There was a meeting, and the owner of Burlington, he was there to say that there were these gangs that were paying these children not a lot of money, these young children that, of course, they know they can't be arrested, and so they got them to steal merchandise, and then they would in turn sell the merchandise. It's a mess. That's a whole different ball game, but it's just so to see how lives, one thing that I in light of what's happening, and knowing that the children that were taken from their parents, remember when we had whatever number that president was, where the children were taken from their parents, and folks found them, they were in their own fecal matter, and a whole lot of, there are still children that are unaccounted for. I saw a documentary the other day that said there are children that their parents are asking for them, and no one can, there's no paper trail, there is no documentation, there is nothing, as if their children have vanished without a trace. And so what happened, you know? But so much is going on that folks are not, you know, feel as if their hands are tied. But I also wanted to say that one of the questions you asked, and that Mrs. Sparrow answered so eloquently, also to add to that, is the DA's office, because our own Brooklyn DA's office have arrested quite a few traffickers, excuse me, quite a few traffickers. And I remember there was one in particular that the young lady that he sold her a bill of goods, as Mrs. Sparrow said. You know, if it seems too grandiose, you know, and it was to get her into the movies and everything like that, because you do know that there are production companies right here in New York. And so he lured her here that way. But he bought her a one-way ticket. And then when she got here, she was in Bed-Stuy. She came from the Midwest, I think Ohio. And she was raped and had to perform sex duties, given drugs, and it was just, and the neighbors weren't even aware that this was happening right under their noses. But thank God, someone saw something suspicious, reported it, it was investigated. The long story short, he was arrested. So at least there's that one, and you know there was another one since. But yeah, it's a lot. Anyone has any questions for Mrs. Sparrow?
I just wanted to piggyback on what you were talking about. There is a huge child prostitution ring in Bed-Stuy, right up and down Broadway in Brooklyn. And there's two high schools that's, you know, maybe either on Broadway or, you know, like a block over from Broadway. And the young girls, they go to school or look like they're going to school, and they get caught up in selling themselves to adults that are over there looking to get serviced by these young girls. I used to work at a senior center that was over on Saratoga, Ralph Avenue, very near Broadway. And I used to have to watch and make sure that people 18 years and older, you know, could come into the senior center, because some of the young girls were coming into the senior center with some of the senior men posing as home attendants and granddaughters and things of that nature. And they were escorted by these senior men, you know, to you know, have sex with them. So yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And I mean, like during the daytime, between, I would say, 3 and 6 o'clock in the evening, you walk up and down Broadway, broad daylight, you see these young teenage girls, young adult women, just walking up and down, just walking up and down. And you would think, oh, well, maybe they're lost, or maybe they're looking for they want to go into one of the coffee shops or something. No, they are soliciting. They're not saying anything. They're just walking up and down. They're dressed in regular clothing, and they're walking up and down. You wouldn't even, and I live in Bed-Stuy, and I would be going into work and I would see these young girls. And I'm like, shouldn't you be in the after school program or something? Like, why are you still walking up and down? And the school let out already, and I just from observing, because I'm there, going to work and what have you, and I noticed that those girls, they were not over there going to school, they were over there working, and they would meet whoever there's a McDonald's right there on Gates Avenue. They would meet and hook up there, or there's a Dunkin' Donuts further down. From there, they would go into places like that and make their connection or what have you, and then they would go wherever these adults wanted them to go, or wherever they wanted to take them, and they would earn money, so yeah.
Yeah, another thing I think parents have to be aware of too. I saw this mother, she posted that her child, I don't know the programs that they have on the phone for the children, but those who have young children probably know what it is she was talking about. But she said an adult contacted her child and asked the child to give the person their address. And the child went to the mother to say, what is the address? And she's like, who's asking for the address? And anyway, she reported it. But sometimes, I know someone else whose teenage son was talking to someone on the phone that pretended to be another teenager but wasn't, and asked to meet with them. And then the sheriff said, oh, they get a lot of kids that are taken like that. And so, it behooves parents to be aware and alert, and not to encourage children. And I know they get to the age where, oh, I'm independent and I need to be on my own. And we're like, oh, sure, you're independent and you're on your own. And that's what predators, that's what groomers, this is what they appreciate. They love this, because then they can swoop in and under the guise of being another teenager and say, oh, your parents, oh, and then, oh, or you're unhappy. Let me tell you, also the internet, while we can get good information, people have to be careful. I remembered someone that I know spoke about being depressed, spoke about going through certain issues, and you wouldn't believe who contacted them. I am telling you. So there are folks out there that are just preying on those who are broken, those who feel misused, abused, that are predators, or like just waiting to take prey. Those who, as Mrs. Sparrow said, those who have been ostracized or alienated, or just feel alone. Because people who feel alone and lonely, that's also a dangerous place to be.
Well, another thing I also want to point out, Reverend Love, report that. That's very important that you report that. Department of Homeland Security, report what you know. because that can be addressed. And that's an example of how you could be part of the Blue campaign and with Department of Homeland Security, because that's what they want. They want to encourage individuals like yourself who notice these things to help work with them and report it. So I highly recommend that. Now, for the addressing what you mentioned about how our children are very independent and allowing them access is very difficult. Even before internet, children were always rebellious. And yes, traffickers do target the rebel. A lot of times it's the rebellious child who ends up getting kidnapped because it's easy to separate them from the flock because that's what they want. They crave that. So what I've learned to do is teach my daughters how to identify these things while they're navigating those tools, and then how to report it using, a lot of times people don't realize, parents and stuff, because we're so disconnected from these tools that our kids use, that we don't even realize they're actually reporting tools in those tools. You can report this stuff, and they do ask, oh, what are you reporting? And if you can report the fact that this person's disguising as a minor, you can report that on those apps. And I teach my daughters how to do that. They even have a system on how to target and identify any infiltrators inside their group chats and everything, and then they make a game of it. And I think that's what's really important, is to teach kids that it's okay to be free. It's okay to take that freedom, but how to protect it. And then that allows them to trust you more, because now my daughters, they come to me, and I even in my daughter's group chat know all her friends and they talk to me. I'm the cool mom to them, and I play that role because it's more important that she trusts me and comes to me than it is for her to think. And now I have another daughter who's a rebel, and no matter what I say, no matter what the freedoms I give her, she's going to just take them anyways. And so I have to reason with her and work a little more with her and be more patient. And then on top of that, she's a little diva. So, those things, right now it's a danger. And as a parent, we're quick to want to stifle our children's spirits to protect them, not realizing that actually that's exactly what we're doing, is driving them away from us and driving them into the hands of these people who allow them to feel free. So I think it's very important for us as parents is to give our children a safe space to be free and express that rebellion and express themselves without being too much of a stern rod over them, because that can drive, especially little girls, drive children away from us. And it will force them to do something very natural, which is take their freedom and part of taking their independence and growing. And then on top of that, we got to recognize, as a community of as African-American community and as a Black community, we were taught to also assert that type of control over our children, because of the fact that it was in slave days, it was to keep our children safe. But now it's a different form of slavery, and we got to transform our way of upbringing and keeping our children safe. And that's here. Very important is here, and maintaining that their mental health and emotional health in a safe space to have that. My daughters have their moments to break down. Yeah, that's whiny and it drives me crazy, but they can have it. They can do it. And then if I have to break down with them, oh my God, Mama's breaking down with them. Because we need to all see each other as human beings. Because I think there's also an unrealistic expectation placed on parents. And I've only been a single mom for 7 years, so I can imagine what these poor women who are single moms way much longer, what they have to endure. There's a stigma that comes with being a single mother and your children. And I am always evading this stigma. And that stigma is that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not educated enough to handle their education. And that also that, I'm a crazy woman, and they know immediately that my kids will drive me crazy. So as traffickers are also observing the parents and observing their weaknesses, that's when they come in. And a lot of times from, experiences dealing with not just myself, but other survivors and stuff like that, is that there are people who are around them that just, their job and what they're literally getting paid for is to watch you, observe you, and then act as soon as you're weak. And then and then, or let those others know to act because you're weak, including like parents who go, like you said, parents who are going to work, or if parents have to go through surgery or a health crisis, these areas is how a person could be vulnerable. And I think that's very important because racism made us believe that was only one demographics of people that's targeted. But no, that demographics of individuals was the petri dish, is where they experimented and perfected their psychological warfare, and now everyone's targeted. So if you are even in a Caucasian family who's dealing with privilege, the moment you're weak, and we know this, you have to protect your assets because there are people who are coming after those assets and coming to exploit your children and exploit your family. So they have us divided on this income level, social class, not realizing that even if you do become rich and you do have money, you're still, now you have to protect yourself from being exploited for that money and exploited for that wealth, and then to make sure that your children can inherit it. And people will literally come in and act as boyfriends and act as girlfriends just so they can exploit those assets. So it's it does. When we talk about it like this, it sounds so daunting. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a solution. We do. And those solutions are just legislation changes. And let's start with just vetting those who are around our children. We could just start small and start with that. Vetting the immigrants that come through, make sure they're not being exploited or they're the exploiters themselves. And also vet our social workers and our police force and anyone who has control over the trajectory of our lives, including judges, including lawyers, including court. These are people who have access to these areas that make the final decision. And so many people are right now having records on them just that were deliberately placed just so that they could be isolated from getting jobs, so that they can be trafficked. So we have to, when we talk about disproportionately jailing Black women and children and men, well, that's what that looks like. They're putting juvenile records, and then and then in other individuals who aren't aware of this stuff, or even let's say our own, community, the Uncle Toms who like to sell the image and the stereotypes, we have to realize that we are feeding this through our judgment and our misperception of each other. And we need to just, instead of when we see a person being extremely emotional and volatile, instead of judging them, we should embrace them. And then our law enforcement should have their hands untied, so this way they can intervene properly on our behalf too. So there are solutions. Mm-hmm.
If I can just jump right in. Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
I appreciate this segment here, Wake the Nation, because that's a perfect topic, I guess I can say, because we are asleep on a lot of things, and just appreciating what you have said, Mrs. Sparrow and Dr. Chang and Reverend Love. I was just thinking as you were speaking, the thing we need to do is to get the information out more to more people. And like, we only have 6 people on, this segment tonight, when I just feel like, I don't know if it's on Facebook or not, or YouTube, Dr. Chang. Oh, okay. Amen. Because as a former parent coordinator of the New York City Public School, and I believe there's another parent coordinator on as well, a friend of mine, Ms. Joe, getting this information into the schools so the parents can hear it, and children directly, and the school staffs can hear it directly, that, these are the things that are happening, because, a lot of people allow their children to walk home by themselves walk to school by themselves, and a lot of latchkey children, as they are called. They go home and they're in the homes by themselves until their parents come home. Or a lot of children don't go straight home from school like we had to do when we were coming up. But a lot of children don't go straight home from school. They want to stop at the pizza shop. They want to stop at the store. They want to stop here and there at friends' houses. And like you said, we don't know who to trust, really. We don't know who to trust. And so I just believe getting the information out more. And, I sent this information to a few people. I see 2 people that I did send it to, they did join, but I send it to parents because I need parents to hear this information. I need the parents to know that this is real, that this is just not happening in other countries or other states, but it's happening right here in the United States of America. So, I don't know, Mrs. Sparrow, if there's any way that you could go into the public schools and you could take this information to, they have what they call PTA meetings, and,
Yes.
get in touch with parent coordinators and people like that, we can share this information with, because this is very important. This is scary. And, I think that I thank God that I have a relationship with him, and that, I can go to him in prayer and cast my cares upon him and cast this situation upon him as well. And we already know that he knows about it, and pray more for our children and make our children aware of what's really happening in this world. Because like you said, our children are rebellious. Some of them, they want to do what they want to do. They don't want to follow house rules. They don't want to follow anything. They just want to be free, like you said, and do whatever they want to do, and not understanding the danger that is out there lurking in those streets for them. So I appreciate this information and this segment on tonight. And if you could, I don't know if Ms. Job would like to have you come to her school, because she's a parent coordinator, to give this information out to the people at one of the PTA meetings, or anybody else online that would like to share. Even in the churches, we need to go into the churches and share this information as well, that the churches will know, because, we don't think about these. This is something that you never hear anybody talking about this in the ministries. You don't hear them discussing what's really going on in the earth today. We're talking about the word of God, which is what we should do. Yes, but we need to talk about live things that are happening in the earth, so that we can be aware and that we can protect our children from these predators. So I thank you so much for tonight. God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Lee. I always tell folks, I say, I bring the DA's office, I bring every office to my church. I let them address the issues, because while going to church, folks are singing and praising, and I would see folks leave with their face hanging, or leaving angry, leaving broken, and I'm like, wait, what? While going through issues that they, whether it was judicial, economic, so we have to address everything. Even with people in church have had family members been arrested. We live on earth, and I said, as long as we live on earth, we need to address what happens here. God never told us not to. So
Amen.
But go ahead, I don't know if you have information, Sparrow, you want to put in the chat, just so if they need to have you to attend a PTA or a church,
Yes.
and give this information, because it's really necessary. It's necessary.
Yes, I put my email inside. I also, yes, it would be an honor to come to the schools and the churches and educate the families and people about what's going on, because the idea was to do that. And what we do is we use entertainment. We'll use performance art and engaging hula hooping. What my genre of art that I fall under is flow art, which is a tool. It's a form of dance art that uses tools such as aerial hoops, ribbons, fans, hula hooping, and the list goes on. So so we come in and we'll do a performance that fits the message. We'll also do a presentation for more. We also have a presentation set up for more professional setting as well. And then for the children, we are more engaging, more performance friendly, and entertaining and stuff like that. And then even sometimes some people, even for the adults, because not all the adults could swallow the truth. So, so we do this, and we also promote mental health building with this too as well. So the hula hoop is a great form of exercise. It's a great form of mental health, and also to encourage people to use it as a tool, because you don't even realize carrying a hula hoop can allow you to defend yourself in a way where you can't with the we want to be gun free. We want to be weapon free, right? So the best way things is to have a tool. Like, for example, what I do with my children with the hula hoop is if we're moving through a crowded area, they each hold on to a hoop and they each hold on to each other's hoops. And then they stay tight in formation. And then they move through the crowd. And then if anyone tries to separate them, they have to go break through the barrier of the hula hoop. So you know, it's how we could teach our children to navigate. And I've used it in the trains when I mean, ladies, how many times we've experienced men trying to press up too much closely. It's a great barrier. The circumference, stay within the circumference of the hoop. And so, you know, so I've learned to incorporate these child-friendly and family-friendly tools that are cute. It's adorable. You know, young ladies like to be sexy. It's cute. So we'll let them be a little cute and everything too. But what we're doing is, the idea is to take away from over sexualizing things and also demonizing our sexuality as well. Because we have to embrace the fact that, you know, the divine feminine within us, our sensuality, is a very key factor in who we are. And it's been stifled in so many ways, where it's oppressed in us, where we're taught to tone ourselves down as women, and when we should turn it up. You know. So these are, the ideas to inspire. And I've also do like comedy, use stand-up comedy for the adults too. We could do maybe like where parents could come together for these meetings and enjoy a stand-up comedy show, where the information is being told through stand-up, and then they could laugh, receive the information, and then later on we could do like handouts and pamphlets and handouts. So many ways. I got so many ideas on how to address this, and we fit your needs and what you guys are looking for. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yes, definitely, because there are PowerPoints and there's some things in works that should be coming out soon to get this across board, because it's necessary. It's like necessary, like yesterday or 2 days before yesterday. Yeah, it's real. It's live. It's in our front yards, and we can't just close our eyes because folks are struggling. You know, and as she said before, we have you know, seniors in our, and this is the thing too, especially when it comes to seniors in the church. There's actually what is it called? The DA's office in Brooklyn, I know, have a program for seniors, Christian seniors, because there are folks who will use the Bible to oppress Christians. We were in a meeting on the we were in a Zoom meeting when a son attacked his mother because he went there. No, she was at his home, and we had to call 911, and you know, long story short, she was extricated from the situation. But we're watching as she falls. She's on the floor. It's real. It's absolutely real. And so, you know, it's incredible. And I found out about some of our seniors that have their monies were removed from their bank accounts. And one particular person I was speaking to, and I said, well, did you report it to the, you know, I'm like, why didn't you let me know? Because our elected officials, you know, the attorney general, and the person said to me, oh, I was just trusting God. And I'm not saying not to trust God, listen, not saying not to trust God, but it has to be reported, because if it's someone from that particular bank, and then when I went to a meeting with the DA's office, lo and behold, I'm in a meeting where numerous seniors stood up, and this one particular branch, and I'll call it out, Chase Bank. So many seniors were saying, Monies have been taken out. And when I say monies, I mean, because, not all seniors are broke. There's seniors who they're nurses or they've worked hard and saved their money. 40,000, 50,000, 70,000. Yeah. So if you have any senior that's banking with Chase Bank, make sure, because sometimes they see it and they don't know what to do or they're afraid. So speak to them. We have to get the messages out and people need to know what's happening. And this is why we have Wake the Nation here. Reverend Love was there. She knows when Wake the Nation was born. you know, and God gave me, the commission to speak on issues, bring folks that will speak, that have, the temerity, that is bold enough to speak on the issues that need to be addressed. So here we are. So if you have any more questions for Mrs. Sparrow or Reverend Love, and that how we can work together, even in addressing the mental health issues. That's another issue. That's another big issue that needs to be addressed as well. So if anyone else have any other question, you can unmute and ask.
I was very interested. You piqued my interest when you talked about
The dance.
the flow art and particularly the hula hoop therapy. I'm very familiar with hula hoop, and I do therapy, and it never dawned on me, but you're absolutely right. Hula hooping is a great form of exercise and a total body workout, and it's relaxing and everything. And so I'm just interested in if you could share other ways that you utilize the hula hoop, because you said to carry a hula hoop with you. Like when you said that, I was like, really? That's a bit much, but then when you talked about how you use the hula hoop to navigate through crowded subways,
it's a defense mechanism,
and
right?
as a defense, a form of protection.
Yes.
Then it made sense. So could you expound more on other uses of the hula hoop?
Yeah. So there's some movements that I've incorporated in the hula hoop that are very similar to Tai Chi, Qigong, or even MMA, mixed martial arts and stuff like that. So there's this one move where you hold the hoop like this, and then your arm goes in and out. That's called the weave. It's a simple move. And now when the hoop's in my hand, what the hoop is doing is going over my head and back under and coming back over my head and back. So now if I'm in a situation and someone is, let's say these days, a lot of people have been stabbing, right? And someone pulls out a knife. Well, that hula hoop, now if I come down like this with enough force, that baby's a whip. And and I've unfortunately at one time had to use it as a self-defense against a man who was about 6'2". And what happened was there was a young lady crying. I was at Chelsea Piers, the gym. They're racist behind kicked me out. But anyways, we'll get back. We'll that's another day. Calling them out since we calling people out like Chase Bank and But anyway,
But it's true.
It is true. No, these, they do these things. Yes. So what happened was, the young lady was crying, and as from woman to woman, when a woman's crying over heartbreak, you could tell. And I heard it in her tears, and I go to her and I was like, and she was a beautiful woman. And I go to her, I was like, I'm not here to know your business. I'm not here to ask you what's wrong. I'm just here to be here and hug you and hold you. And then she just appreciated that. And we started hugging, and she started just releasing. You could tell it was that healing cry. And then all of a sudden this guy comes out of nowhere with someone else with him. And he's like, do you know her? And I was like, oh, no. And I stopped touching her because I was like, oh, I don't You know, I didn't want him to think I'm hitting on his woman or anything like that. So he goes, "Do you know her?" And I was like, "No." And he asked his girl, he's like, "Do you know her?" And she's like, "No, she just wanted to comfort me. I was crying. That was all." And next thing you know, he starts choking her. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And then I'm calling out to the security, "Call the cops. Someone call the cops. This man is assaulting this woman." And he turns around when I was yelling to call the cops to turn on me. And excuse me, Jesus, I was like, "The difference between me and you niggas, I'm that bitch that hits back." And then I whipped it and grabbed him with the hoop because he went to go lunge for me. And when he lunged, I grabbed him inside the hoop and I pulled in the hoop. He couldn't fight it. And it was him and his cousin. His cousin was trying to hold him to stop him from launching at me. And I grabbed both men into the hoop and pulled them both down to the ground. And then that whipping motion had split his nose right here. So it was a great self-defense, but I had no weapon. It was no weapon. It was my hula hoop. And it was actually my skinny, small hula hoop. It's not even my big hula hoops that the weighted ones that I usually use, which is what I use for the exercise. And it's great for muscle toning and stuff like that, and stuff like that. So I use it to tone myself up as well as learning and incorporating those moves. And those are simple moves. Very simple. That weave move is a very simple move, and a child can learn it. A grown-up can learn it, and it's great for coordination too. And it's great. What's good about the hula hoop is when you learn to dance in it and spin in it, you learn to look around your surroundings, and then you're looking, and it makes you more aware. So I think it's a very important tool to use in teaching our children to be aware of their surroundings as well, and being better coordinated. So, you know, especially these days, I love the beauty of the phone and technology. I am not one of those people like, "Oh, technology destroyed everything." I think technology can liberate us, actually, and stuff. But it has become a big distraction too. And a lot of our children, and even our young women and older people, even myself, you know, I find myself my nose in the phone, and then I have to look up, but I'm aware to look up every once in a while. I'll even turn around and look around me just to make sure I'm not being trailed and stuff like that. And so, but we have to teach our children to do that. Look up from your phones, put your phones away, have your phones available for an emergency, even registering our phones for okay Google, and it lit up. I don't know if you can see it, but my phone just lit up. So when I do that, and I'll be like, "Okay Google, call," and I say the number, right? You know, I don't want to say it because I don't want them to call. But we tell them to call 911, right? So there's ways we can use our children's technology to keep them safe. There's even watches that, you know, that can keep track of their movements, and we can watch their movements during live time. So there's solutions. We can use the technology that we have to protect our children as well. So, you know, so that's the idea. And also the hula hoop is a great tool. Oh my gosh, it's so great for mental health. I get lost in that baby. If I get mad, and then I've had men approach my children, asking my children to try to come with them. I've had it happen. And I've had people I've known send those men. And believe me, Mama Bear comes out, and I don't care who you are, I don't care where you're from, someone messes with your children, there's another side of you that is very fierce, and traffickers also weaponize that side, inciting the parents to defend their children with that fierceness, which further alienates them as well. So we gotta, yeah. So I definitely, yeah, the hula hoop is, yeah, back to that. The hula hoop, I go off on tangents all the time. My mind is all over the place, but yeah, the hula hoop is a great tool.
Thank you for sharing that. I have a whole new respect for the hula hoop now. And it never dawned on me to want to take a hula hoop defense class. I mean, that's something else. I think you're on to something with that, and
Thank you.
continue to share. You know, and you know, perhaps more people will, you know, carry a hula hoop with them, you know, everywhere they go. it never dawned on me to do that, but you hooped somebody, you know, to defend yourself. I mean, I I could only imagine that man's shock and even amazement that when he realized that he got spanked with a hula hoop. Okay, like
Oh, his face was like, what is this? I'm going down.
right, like
Like,
what?
yeah, brother, you going down.
I'm telling you, give new meaning to the word hooper, and stuff. So that's awesome. And thank you for sharing for that. Uh do you do hula hoop? Uh do you train or with the flow art and the
Yeah, so what we've been working on is to the idea is to incorporate this into dance schools and as well as schools as an after school program and in churches there's a church program. So yeah, so the idea is to create workshops that will do both teach how to hula hoop and also educate the community on systemic trafficking and human trafficking. Mhm.
That's awesome. I'm a praise dancer myself, and so that really that's another reason why it attracted my attention. And with the flow art, you had mentioned that you use ribbons and the hula hoop, and it was one more thing that you had said that you
Bands,
bands. Yeah, okay, yeah.
aerial
Um,
hooping, swords, name it. Belly dance is another flow art. Another one that has been I use this tool, the pole dance, because the pole dance is actually a flow art tool, but a lot of people associate it to stripping. So in America, I use it as a say, hey, this is where our daughters are gonna end up if we don't get this handled. But the truth is, the pole, certain movements that you use can also be incorporated into martial arts movements. Because once you learn how to lift yourself up, you can learn how to do certain kicks. You can learn how to use your environment, like your wall. If you're cornered by, especially a young woman, you're cornered by a man who's stronger than you. If you know how to lift yourself up, you can lift yourself out of a situation and literally flip over a guy, or even run and skip and jump off the wall and leap over a person and get away. So these tools do help you with staying fit. And then women, we like to be pretty. We like to do things and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fun and it's a lot of fun. My daughters know how to work on to do dance pole work as well. But it's not sexualized at all. We're fully
right,
clothed. But the reason why you'll see a lot of times these performance artists bare skinned is not because of the sexualization of it, but more so because the tools flow better off your skin, because cloth can be a hazard for slipping.
right,
So
right.
so I'm also working on like pleather outfits that will allow gripping, these better, more more conservative friendly. So yeah, so we've been working on that too as well. So yeah.
Okay, okay. I also know that the pole dancing um is great for bolstering upper body strength.
Yes.
Um and it also raises self-esteem also. So yeah, I didn't know that it was a flow art because until today I didn't know what a flow art was. So thank you for sharing that, so that now I know. And would look into that as well and incorporate it. It's another form of dance. I personally love dancing. Um, and you know, I know psychological benefits of dance as well, as the physical health benefits and everything. And so thank you for bringing this art form, you know, out to the masses and everything. And I look forward to seeing, you know, you bring it out, if it's after school, or you know, or have classes where, you know, children and adults can take these classes and incorporate the flow art, you know, into their lives and into their regimes. I know,
Especially as a form of defense mechanism in this world to be protected, right? So,
yeah. I recently took boxing lessons, and I learned so much about you know, my physicality, simply from taking boxing lessons, and I just learned the basics and everything. But it's also a very, very good way to clear your mind, to release aggression and stress even, you know. And you know, you also learn ways to defend yourself in case if you are in a situation where you might have to, you know, swing and everything. And so I understand, and I love the fact that you have incorporated the flow art and the hula hoop, and you know, use it in different ways to help. So yeah, thank you for doing that, and thank you for bringing that to our attention and sharing it.
Thank you for having me. And I'm gonna have to get off because my phone is about to die.
no,
The
we're ending ourselves as well. So closing remarks.
Yes.
You have any closing remarks, Ms. Sparrow?
Well, I guess in closing is you guys can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Sparrow INTL. That's short for Sparrow International. And it's spelled SPARROWINTL. And my Facebook is also Wilhelmina Sparrow. It's the one with the gold star, and the white backdrop with the gold sparrow coming out of the star. And basically, ladies and gentlemen, let's come together. We can unite for this. If we can unite to tear down shelters, and if we can unite to take down a president, and if we can unite to do all these things that we've been seeing across the world, we're even uniting to call for peace and ceasefire in Israel, then let's unite to protect our children and our women from being extorted and exploited. And also, let's untie our men's hands, let's untie the officials' hands, and untie the law enforcement hands so that they can properly protect us and themselves as well. So
Thank you very much for agreeing to join us to share in this very, very important mission, really. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Any parting words, Reverend Love?
I'd just like to thank Mrs. Sparrow for bringing this very, shedding light on this very important topic, and thank you for the work that you are doing, and encouraging all of us to put our hands to the plow, so to speak. You know, thank you, Reverend Flo Chang-Ageda, for you know, inviting her to this platform and sharing it with the nations, you know, to wake the nation. And so I'm just I learned a lot And I won't look at a hula hoop the same again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as we close out tonight, I want to thank Reverend Lee, Miss Job. Hi, Miss Job. Doris. Thank you to my co-host, Reverend Love. And thank you to Mrs. Wilhelmina Sparrow, a friend of mine, and, just a dynamic woman who's doing her part. She did not sit silent, even in the midst of her struggles. She's willing to go out and to advocate for those who are voiceless or who may not be able to navigate the course, to extricate themselves from what they may be entangled in or oppressed by or imprisoned by. And so let us join with her. And she has placed her information in the chat. If you've got it, you can reach out to her. If not, you can always reach out to me if you're interested after you've seen this, once it's on YouTube or it's now on Facebook. And so that she can, and her staff can come out along with her children, because they are a part of, they really, are very adept at this. They're very aware. Like she said, they're educated on what's happening and how to defend themselves, how we can utilize technology to assist. And just, I was in New Jersey today, and driving back, I kept seeing, you see something, say something. We need to do that. You see something, say something. And most times folks are afraid that they think I have no choice. Who do I turn to? You can reach out to the DA's Action Center. You can reach out to the Attorney General. You can reach out to the FBI, as she said to you. And then you have us. You can reach out to any one of us. And you can reach out to Mrs. Sparrow. Definitely, she's there. She will, go with you. And we're all here to hold each other's hands. We're here to, stand by each other and to support each other, because united we stand. Okay, we can't do this alone. So I just had to bring this, and I'm glad that you're here to support. And I thank you again, Wilhelmina, for your work. Really, I'm truly grateful for what you're doing. And I just want to leave you all with this word. And we went a little over today, but it's okay, because this is very important. And I just want to say, the scripture says, what? Be alert in 1 Peter 5, 8 and 9. It says, be alert, be on the watch for the enemy of our souls, right? He is roaming about trying to see who is weak, who's discouraged, who's rebellious. Mrs. Sparrow gave the red flags, or what to look out for. Who are those who are being monitored? So, people who are depressed can be preyed upon. People who struggle can be preyed upon. So let us, if we see someone who's weak, because we know when we were down, there was someone who put out a hand to pull us up. And we know that God is there to pull us up. However, the Bible tells us that everything that he does through us so we can help each other. So let's remember, see something, say something, help someone along the way. It is our duty and part of our purpose. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for staying and for caring. Please share this video with each other, with others, so that they may know. And please reach out to Mrs. Sparrow so that they can come out and educate those who need to know. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Good night.
And good night.
Thanks, Doris.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Lee, for inviting everyone.
Yes, thank you.
We're here to support each other. By the way, I just want to say Reverend Lee will be going to with anyone who wants to join her. Oh, Reverend Lee, if you can quickly put your information in the chat as well. So she wants to give each homeless person a packet, which will include either a sleeping bag or a sleeping pad, along with a sandwich and some water, just a little care packet for that. She'll be doing this on November 11th. So please reach out to her before that. All right. And if you can put your information in there. If not, you can always call me. I'll give you the information so that, you can either join her, make a contribution to her, or if you have some sleeping bags that you want to donate, please let us take care of those who are out there on the streets, who may not feel safe enough in the shelters, or may not have a place in which to lay their heads, so that they will have something to keep them warm for the winter. Okay.
Amen.
Thank
Amen.
you.
Amen.
All right. Do you see it? If not, reach out. Give you a
Amen.
few minutes to copy it down. Thank you.
All right. Thank
All
you so
right.
much. Thank you. Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
Chang. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That's what we do. We support each other.
That's
We're
right.
feeding the people. We're feeding the nation and
We're
keeping
waking them
them
up.
warm and advocating and teaching folks how to stay safe. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get a hula hoop.
Mhm.
Yes.
That'll be nice.
I'm interested in getting the hula hoop now, really. I'm
Yes.
like,
Yes.
let's get it. Let's get it.
Oh,
You
she
know.
knows someone where you can get some hula hoops. So
Oh, mhm.
you can
And
reach out to her.
mhm.
Okay.
All
Yes.
right.
Mm.
Good night. Thank
All
you
right.
all.
Good night.
Good
I
night,
pray that
everyone.
this blessed everyone, that really you will be, take heed. Thank you.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Amen.
Mrs.
And you
Sparrow.
as well.
Appreciate you.
Amen.
Appreciate your work.
Thank you so much.
Night,
Yeah.
Bye-bye
everyone.
now.
Okay.